We are Anoymous Media. Many issues related to gun control have been shared by various people. We are here to tell you about the idea that you don't need guns to protect yourself from your government, that America would never violate your rights and would always be acting in your interests. A quote from the New York Times in the article titled "America's Shameful Human Rights Record." In addition to American citizens being targeted for assassination or indefinite detention, recent laws have canceled the restraints in the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act of 1978 to allow unprecedented violations of our rights to privacy through warrantless wiretapping and government mining of our electronic communications. Popular state laws permit detaining individuals because of their appearance, where they worship, or with whom they associate. Despite an arbitrary rule that any man killed by drones is declared an enemy terrorist, the death of nearby innocent women and children is accepted as inevitable. After more than 30 airstrikes on civilian homes this year, 2012, in Afghanistan, President Hamid Karzai has demanded that such attacks end, but the practice continues in areas of Pakistan, Somalia and Yemen that are not in any war zone. We don't know how many hundreds of innocent civilians have been killed in these attacks, each one approved by the highest authorities in Washington. This would have been unthinkable in previous times. End quote. So far America has violated both its own constitutions and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. America also overthrows governments via overt and covert methods. Quote from Policy Mic. Notable examples include the 1973 overthrow of democratically elected Salvador Allende, whose U.S.-supported successor Augusto Pinochet killed or disappeared over 3,000 Chileans during his 16-year tenure, and the 1953 overthrow of the democratically elected government of Mohammad Mosaddegh of Iran. End quote. The same article comments on the existence of Guantanamo Bay and its use in selectively applying the right to due process. Quote, Guantanamo Bay is another example of the U.S. government only applying due process when convenient. There is not enough evidence to convict the vast majority of prisoners there, which is why they have not been brought before a court to face their crimes, and why Obama does not know what to do with them, other than continue to abuse their basic human rights. Guantanamo also represents the recent spike in torture U.S. officials have carried out. The use of waterboarding has been well documented, and even defended by former Vice President Dick Cheney. End quote. Besides coming acts to violate the Constitution, bombing innocent persons in what can only be described as terrorism, and detention of persons they choose independent legal oversight with due process. America has supported governments via arms and presence of American officials such as the acts committed in El Salvador, a country in what is referred to as Central America. Quote, the aid was officially designated to strengthen the Army's key role in reforms in order to prevent at all costs another Nicaragua. Inspired by left-wing politics, and wishing to project a moderately civilized Salvadoran world image, the JRG effected some land reform, Decree No. 43, 6-XII-1979 restricting landholdings to 100-hectare maximum, nationalized the banking, coffee, and sugar industries, scheduled elections for February 1982, and disbanded the paramilitary Private Death Squad ORDEN on November 6, 1979. After 10 years of war, more than 1 million people had been displaced out of a population of 5,389,000. 40% of the homes of newly displaced people were completely destroyed and another 25% were in need of major repairs. Death Squad activities further escalated in 1990, despite a UN agreement on human rights signed July 26 by the Cristiani government and the FMLN. In June 1990, U.S. President George Bush announced an enterprise for the Americas initiative to improve the investment climate by creating a hemisphere-wide free trade zone. President Bush authorized the release of $42.5 million in military aid to the Salvadoran Armed Forces on January 16, 1991. In late January, the U.S. offices of the Democratic Convergence, a coalition of left-of-center parties, were attacked with grenades. On February 21st, a candidate for the Democratic National Unity (UDN) party and his pregnant wife were assassinated after ignoring death squad threats to leave the country or die. On the last day of the campaign, another UDN candidate was shot in her eye when arena party gunmen opened fire on campaign activists putting up posters. Despite fraudulent elections orchestrated by Arena through voter intimidation, sabotage of polling stations by the Arena-dominated Central Elections Council, and the disappearing of tens of thousands of names from the voting lists, the official U.S. observation team declared them free and fair. End quote. Wikipedia, El Salvador Civil War. This shows how while many of the people in office may have changed, that America is still a country violating basic human rights and assists other governments to further increase its power. Most major publicly known violations are happening in outside the borders of America, but recently the increase in abuse by government officials inside of America is becoming public knowledge, as per the use of war weapon, drones, or unmanned aerial vehicle with super cameras violating the Fourth Amendment and the citizen's right to privacy. So do you trust this government with your sole means of protection? Did they ask for a vote of the population to do these things? Do you still believe that could never happen here? America is different. Yes, America is different. Much worse. Started on genocide and kept in power through terrorism and the use of propaganda to keep its white knight image in the minds of its citizens. As per the Constitution of America and the Bill of Rights, any agent, person or agency attempting to restrict firearms is acting as a criminal and should be treated as an enemy of your freedom, liberty, and a direct threat to your life. Arm yourself, war is coming. We are Anoymous Media.